Hi, I'm Michael Newrock, and this is a trend trade aggressive buy example on the 15-minute time frame. Okay, so I'll just place my markers on the bar that created the signal. As always, it's the bar prior to the arrow being displayed. Of course, Profiteer displays all of this for you, but it's just good to be able to spot these on your own and then also be able to evaluate them when Profiteer gives you these signals. So let's go over the rules. We've got an aggressive trade in place because the overall trend direction is a blue bidirectional arrow. That means no more than 3 arrows are pointing up in this case. We've got the moving average crossover that's occurred, yellow moving average closing above the gray moving average. We've got the trend follower changing from red to green. We've got the RSI equal to or above the 50 line. We've got the MACD above the 0 line, and we've got the stochastic white line above the blue line. So that's all we need to confirm for that trade, or this trade, to be validated. We place the stop just below the slow moving average, so there'll be 25 pips. If we wanted to give it a little more room, say make it 30 pips, and this was a nice trade actually, so good momentum. So 30 pips, not quite there. 30 pips is here. That's where we would have achieved a one-to-one reward to risk ratio. 60 pips just here. That gives us a 2-to-1 reward to risk ratio, and 85 pips, just a tiny bit short of a 3-to-1 ratio, but still a very good trade with well over 2.5 times reward to the risk. So that concludes the example for a trend trade aggressive buy on the 15-minute time frame. Of course, check out the cheat sheets in Module 5. Upload your trades for myself or any of our members to comment on, and make sure you participate in the 24-hour chat room and the weekly webinars. Till next time, good trading, live well, and I'll see you soon. Hi, I'm Michael Newrock, and this is a trend trade sell example as a aggressive trade type on the short 15-minute time frame. This is the example that we're looking at here. We do get another trend trade here as well, which went okay. This one failed, but let's just have a look at this one here. It is an aggressive trend type, so this one doesn't look as nice and clean as some of the other ones, and many of the trades that come out. But trading isn't about clean trades. You get all kinds, and that's why it's important to be able to handle those different trade types. So here we have a bidirectional market in place with the overall trend direction blue arrow being displayed. We have the trend follower changing to red. We have the yellow moving average just below the gray moving average. We have the RSI 50 or below. It's just a touch below 50 when you hover over it. We've got the MACD histogram below the 0 line, again just below the 0 line, and the color coding of the MACD is really cool because you've got the dark red above and the bright red below, so it's easier to distinguish, is that actually below the 0 line, because sometimes it is a little bit difficult, especially on these aggressive trade types. And then we have the white stochastic line below the slow moving stochastic line. So that fulfills the rules of an aggressive trend trade sell. Now, our stop, we only need to put it just above the slow moving average, but that's only like 2 or 3 pips, so obviously that's not practical. Say if we placed it, this is on a 15-minute time frame, so of course the stops are smaller than, say, a 1 hour or a 4 hour. But let's say we placed it on 10 pips, which would be I would say the least that I would ever place a stop loss on, unless maybe I was trading on, say, the 5-minute time frames, which I don't typically do. It's a bit more, in the realm of chaos there. But say 10 pips on the stop. Let's say 10 pips here would hit our first target for a 1-to-1 reward to risk ratio. 20 pips here, 2-to-1 reward to risk ratio. 30 pips right here, 40 pips here, and 50 pips, giving us a nice 5-to-1 reward to risk ratio. We only risked 10 pips on this trade and we got 50 pips. We got 5 times more than what we risked. Then we had a correction. You may or may not have survived that, and also depending on whether you had 1 or 2 trades in place, so you could be a lot more liberal with the second position. But if you weren't, that's a good thing. You can always take another trade. And of course there would have been swing trades throughout this move as well. So let's just place the marker on this trend trade real quick, and we can see here that once again trend follower has just turned to red. Yellow moving average is below the gray moving average. Price is equal to or below the fast moving average, the yellow moving average. RSI is 50 or below. It's below in this case. MACD is below the 0 line, and the white line, the white stochastic line, is below the blue stochastic line. So again, we have a trend trade in place, and again, we wouldn't need to place the stop more than a couple of pips to be above that slow moving average. But once again, if we placed it in, say, 10 pips, we would have this move was nice and clean as well. It went pretty much straight down. 10 pips here for a 1-to-1 reward to risk ratio. 20 pips here for a 2-to-1 reward to risk ratio. Went a couple more pips further than that, but 2 good trend trades occurring as a trend trade sell, aggressive trend type or trade type on the short 15-minute time frame. So till next time, good trading, live well, and I'll see you soon. Hi, I'm Michael Newrock, and this is a swing within trend example. It's an aggressive trade type on the short 15-minute time frame. So you can use it on all different time frames, but for the shorter ones, I prefer to not go lower than the 15-minute, but you can do so if you wish. Here are the swings that we're looking at. It's a bidirectional market. We've got the overall trend direction showing a blue bidirectional arrow. By default, no more than 3 arrows are pointing up. And let's just place our markers. We've got 2 swing trades. Now, the trend trade occurred back here. It was a valid trend trade. But let's say you missed it, or you cashed in, or cashed out rather, with a profitable trade, and then you wanted to get back into this trade again, you could do so. So let's have a quick look on this one to start off with. Now we've got no more than 3 arrows pointing up. So it's a bidirectional market making an aggressive trade. The trend follower is green. The fast moving average, or the yellow moving average, is above the slow moving average. Price has closed equal to above the fast moving average, or the yellow moving average. The RSI is 50 or above. In this case, it is above 50. We've had at least 2 consecutive red histogram bars above the 0 line, followed by a green histogram bar above the 0 line. Now, it doesn't have to be above the signal line on an aggressive swing trend trade, and that's all the criteria that we look for a swing within a trend trade. Stop we place just below the slow moving average, say a little bit below, say 25 pips. For our stop loss or our risk, we would have achieved a 1-to-1 reward to risk ratio here, hitting 25 pips, and then 50 pips just here, giving us a 2-to-1 reward to risk ratio. Now, a little bit more than that actually, but if we look at this one here, that's a really nice swing trade too. Nice swing trade example. So let's just quickly go over this one. Again, bidirectional market in place with no more than 3 arrows pointing up. The trend follower is green. The fast moving average, or the yellow moving average, is above the slow moving average. The price is equal to or above the fast moving average. In this case, it's just a tiny bit above the yellow moving average. That's all we need for an aggressive trend type. The RSI is above 50. And with the MACD, again, we have at least 2 consecutive red histogram bars above the 0 line, followed by a green histogram bar. Again, it doesn't need to be above the signal line, just as long as it's green and above the 0 line for an aggressive trend type. So in this case, the stop actually is even less. We place it at the slow moving average. It's only about 7 pips. So if we say drop it down to a little bit below, say 10 pips, then we've got, in this case, well, 50 pips, just over 50 pips. That's a 5-to-1 reward to risk ratio. Okay, that concludes this example on a swing within trend aggressive trade type on the short 15-minute time frame. Till next time, good trading, live well, and I'll see you soon. Hi, I'm Michael Newrock, and this is a swing within a trend example as an aggressive trade type on the short 15-minute time frame. So this is the example that I want to go over today, but of course you can see another 2 swings occurred here and here. We'll quickly go over those. But just going over the rules, we've got the overall trend direction displayed as a bidirectional with no more than 3 arrows pointing down for a sell. I'll just put the markers in place here and here. Now this is fairly interesting because you don't usually see a swing trade so close to the trend trade, but of course in this case, trend trade was not valid, but quickly followed by the swing trade. So let's have a quick look. In trading, the trades come out, or the trade setups, in different ways every time. So it's important to be aware of that. So bidirectional market in place. Trend followers turn to red. Yellow moving average is below the slow moving average. Price is equal to or below, in this case, below the the fast moving average. RSI is 50 or below. It's below in this case. The MACD is has 2, and we need at least 2 green histogram bars below the 0 line, and followed by a red histogram bar below the 0 line, which is there making the trade valid. In this case, stops would have only been, well, slow moving average is only about 3 or 4 pips away. So let's say we had it at, say, 10 pips. This was quite a nice clean trade apart from this consolidation area where we could have picked up these additional swings, but nevertheless, it never moved against us. So 10 pips for our stop. We would have achieved, say, our first target here, 10 pips. Actually here, 10 pips, giving us a 1-to-1 reward to risk ratio. 20 pips here, giving us a 2-to-1 reward to risk ratio. 30 pips here. 40 pips here, giving us a 4-to-1 reward to risk ratio. 50 pips here, and all the way down to here, 60 pips just here, giving us a 6-to-1 reward to risk ratio. So we risked 10 pips, we gained as much as 60 pips. So looking at another example, say this one here. Okay, once again, bidirectional market in place. Trend followers red. Yellow moving average is below the slow moving average. Price is below, just needs to be equal to or below the fast moving average. RSI is below the 50, it only needs to be 50 or below. And again, we've had 2 green histogram bars, consecutive histogram bars below the 0 line, followed by the red histogram bar giving a swing signal. So in this case, we would have placed our stop. Again, the slow moving average is too close at 4 pips. So say 10 pips, we would have just made that, just survived that stop. And again, we would have made it all the way down here. 50 pips, giving us a 5-to-1 reward to risk ratio. Even this one here, the very, very last one. Okay, place our markers here. All the criteria is in place again, and again, easily 10 pips would have, never went against us more than like 2 pips in this case. So 10 pips and 20 pips to the downside, giving us a 2-to-1 reward to risk ratio. So again, bidirectional market in place. Trend followers red. Yellow moving average is below the slow moving average or the gray moving average. Price is below the fast moving average. It only needs to be equal to or below the fast moving average. RSI is below 50. It only needs to be 50 or below. And we've had, in this case, 4 consecutive green histogram bars below the 0 line, followed by the red histogram bar. It doesn't need to be below the signal line, and we only needed to see 2 here. So a valid trade once again, and that concludes this example for a swing within trend sell trade as an aggressive trade type on the short 15-minute time frame. Till next time, good trading, live well, and I'll see you soon.